Good morning, everyone. Jim Laird here from beautiful Largo, Florida. What did I do to my screen? There we go. Beauties of doing live. So much fun. We're really getting wild today. I changed my color to gray as opposed to black. So I'm wearing a different color today, which is exciting. Dr. Stillman will be joining us shortly. Please like and subscribe, comment, ask questions. In the links below, you'll find all of our contact information. You'll also find a link to an upcoming webinar we're doing at the end of the month on thyroid and the thyroid course that we're doing. You'll also find a playlist of all of our podcasts that we've done. And we would love to hear about what you guys got going on, or as far as like what you would like us to talk about. That'd be awesome to give us some more content. We've got all sorts of content, but we want to make sure that we're providing you with information that you actually want to hear about, because a lot of times we end up talking to ourselves essentially. And that being said, today we're talking about the stress, heavy metal, blood pressure connection, right? The chicken and the egg, that sort of thing. And, you know, one of the most common things we see with people is blood pressure. And a lot of times people will be looking for a magic answer, and minerals definitely play a huge role in that. But a lot of times people don't want to get to the actual root brass tacks of things, which is like stress is a major component of that. I actually just got a text message from a young lady I've been working with for a while who super busy. I mean, hair on fire in multiple different ways, and you know, on lots of supplements, the whole deal, but still couldn't get her blood pressure down. And I just, month after month, like, what are you doing to manage stress? What are you doing to manage stress? What are you doing to manage stress? And then finally, I got the text message. I started taking my stress seriously, and guess what? My blood pressure is normal now.
How about that, Jim?
How about that?
How about them apples, Jim?
I was telling people that I've gotten crazy today because I changed my color. I'm wearing gray instead of black, and you're wearing a dark color. That's very rare.
What are you talking about? I wear dark colors all the time.
No, usually you don't wear dark colors. It's usually like a lighter blue, usually.
Sometimes.
Usually I'm the one wearing, you know, I'm usually the Johnny Cash guy, you know.
Yeah, all black. Like
I just like dark colors because I'm kind of a sloppy eater, and I end up spilling stuff on myself all the time. And so if it's white,
you were on a roll. The Johnny Cash thing made it cool, and now you're making it gross.
That's true. That's true. I'm definitely not Dr. Stillman clean. That's for sure.
You know, OCD is a really important quality in some people. Like, you don't want a neurosurgeon who is not a little bit OCD, right? Like our nurse, Michelle, is maybe a little bit OCD. And I'm so grateful for that, because you do not want a nurse who's like, did I remember to do that thing? Or did I get the concentration right on that, you know, medication that's dripping into the patient's veins right now that could destroy their life if I miscalculated the dose, right? So you want some OCD. And this is something that's really important on the topic of blood pressure and heavy metals, is that what you're going to see is that people, there's a adaptive positive element to OCD, which is what I'm getting at here. And that creates more stress. Like, you put an OCD person in, and I shouldn't say OCD, because there's an interesting, I mean, I talk about this a fair bit, right? The psychiatrists are trying to pathologize everyone. You know, all of you now have something in the DSM-5 criteria that justifies some kind of medication being prescribed to you, which is insane.
It's a big book, by the way. Big book.
It's huge. And it's really funny. I mean, funny in a messed up way, right? But one of the books on my shelf by John Virapin, Side Effects Death, he was a pharma industry insider. And he said that, you know, I think it was the CEO or founder or president or whatever of one of the pharma companies, big ones. He said, our goal is to make everyone a customer. That is our goal.
They're doing a great job of it.
Oh my gosh, it's so sick. They are. They're really succeeding.
Did you see what's going around on the truth? Did you see what's going around on the Twitterverse this morning? Or I guess Jim, I don't know what it's called. So I guess it's come out that a certain company that had paid the highest medical fine or in history gave their own employees a different batch of the what's the word I'm looking for, of the therapeutic than the general population got.
Therapeutic.
And they didn't get, I don't think they got free French fries for it though, so that kind of sucks.
What about donuts? They hook them up with the donuts? No? So anyway, what I was saying is,
but I will say, if I hadn't eaten in several days, and like we go to this place in north of here called Maggie Mae's. If you're ever in the Largo area, there's a place called Maggie Mae's. Maybe we'll get a free breakfast out of this. But they have this corned beef hash that is unbelievable. And if at the time, if I hadn't eaten in several days and said, all you got to do is take this thing and you get, and I hadn't eaten like four or 5 days, maybe just might have got me on that. Maybe. Because that corned beef hash is pretty good.
Fortunately, it didn't happen.
It didn't happen. Thank you.
So anyway, what they're trying to do is they're trying to pathologize any kind of, all kinds of normal behavior. And you have to understand yourself in order to put yourself in the right position to succeed in life. Whether you're talking about your blood pressure, your mood, your anxiety levels, right? So somebody who's super OCD and is really bothered by disorder. And again, I keep saying OCD, and I wish I didn't, but I've been conditioned clearly by the medical industrial complex to say this. But if you're really detail oriented and it bothers you when things are out of place, if you really want things to be super neat and tidy, then knowing that about yourself is something you need to take into account. Don't take a job where everything is crazy and insane and overwhelming. Take a job where that becomes a strength. And your boss is going to say things like, they're so organized, they're so on top of things, nothing slips through the cracks, everything is neat and orderly. Jim actually brought this up the other day. He said he had a motorcycle mechanic back in Lexington who's a former F-16 mechanic. And if you moved so much as a nut or a bolt or a screw out of place in his shop, he would lose his mind. And that's exactly what you want in those professions, right? Because the last thing Jim can afford to have is his motorcycle
flying apart while I'm riding down the road. That's not good.
Right. Let alone F-16 coming apart in the air. Right. And so this comes back to high blood pressure, right? Because if you are that kind of person and you put yourself in a situation where there's just a ton of chaos and insanity and it's impossible to keep things orderly and neat and tidy, expect yourself to fall apart. You can count on it, right? Now, this comes back to heavy metals, because one of the things you'll see in people who've been really damaged by heavy metals, aluminum, cadmium, mercury, arsenic, for just a few examples, they're going to have more of these tendencies. They're going to be more, let's say, neurotic. They're going to be more concerned and anxious about things in general. And that's one of the reasons why getting people's mineral balance right is so powerful and impactful for their outlook on life and how they feel about the world. Because you fix these numbers and all of a sudden the brain starts to work better. There's a lot of other elements that play into this. Like, for example, there's something called gluten psychosis, which is a psychosis induced by a cross-reactivity between proteins in your brain and proteins on the wheat protein molecule. So eating wheat triggers actual outright psychosis in these patients. It's related.
Doctor, would you say that like chronic stress or somebody that's not in a good place, they're not getting outside enough, they're not doing the things, makes them more susceptible to like heavy metal toxicity 100%. And things like that? 100%. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, and that's why changing your lifestyle is so important. Just focusing on getting the body healthier in general.
And this is why people come to us and they say, "What's the cure for this? What's the cure for that? What do I have to do this and do that and do this and the other thing?" Right? And we say, "Look, slow down. Relax, focus on what matters in your life, really decide what's important to you. Okay, draw some healthy boundaries, get the things off your plate that you can't have on your plate because your plate is overflowing. Okay, now your stress levels are reduced. Okay, great. Now we're going to add some healthy habits so that your body will work properly to detoxify the elements that it's exposed to." One of the other things we actually want to talk about on some Morning Live is there's this great article by Jen Margulis. For those of you who don't know who that is, she I'm actually going to bring it up right now and share it.
That is a solid last name,
isn't it?
Margulis. What ethnicity is that? Do you know?
I don't know. So I'm going to actually share this on the screen real quick. So Jennifer Margulis, for people who don't know, is a really fascinating character who I've been following for a little while. She runs a Substack. It's called Vibrant Life. And she was recently diagnosed with ocular melanoma. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's melanoma of the eyeball. The treatment for which, generally speaking, is what we call technically enucleation, which is a fancy term for having your eyeball removed. And she wrote this incredible article on whether or not contacts that she's been wearing for 30 years may have created or contributed to this problem. What does this have to do with heavy metals and stress, et cetera, right? One of the things we really stress with people, pun intended, is that they need to not only get stress out of their life, but get toxic chemicals out of their life. And she goes through this great summary of all the different toxins that are found, potentially anyway, in your contact lenses. And if you have a minute, go over to Jen's Substack, subscribe. She's fighting this melanoma. I really wish her well. I wish her luck. I hope you'll support her because she's trying to do some integrative and natural stuff that's never going to be covered by whatever insurance she has. And I hope that she beats this thing. But anyway, the point is, when we get you into these healthy lifestyle habits, all these different problems start to respond because your body starts to remove these toxins.
Does she get into at all maybe how the light environment?
What's really funny is that when she posted about this the first time, I dropped a comment with a link to my interview with Jay Montgomery, and I never heard back from her about that. But I mean, I don't know her personally.
Sure.
And I hope she tunes into that, because I remember writing a blog post a long time ago on the top risk factors for ocular melanoma. And it's a really interesting list because none of them are, for those of you who don't know, ocular melanoma is interesting because it's a melanoma that arises in a part of the body where ultraviolet light doesn't readily penetrate. It's inside the eye, right? And UV light doesn't readily penetrate more than, a few millimeters at most into the skin. And it doesn't penetrate well into the structures of the eye at all. And so when people say, oh, well, the sun causes melanoma, I say, do spoons make people fat? Right? I don't think this is a fair comparison or conclusion to draw, because it's so much more complex than that. It's so much more multifactorial, as Jen gets into with her article on contacts. And as I talk about with things like heavy metals, people will get sidetracked just looking at their heavy metals without considering organic pollutants, without considering a lack of water, without considering stress. We really have a very comprehensive view, I would say the two of us, on why someone's blood pressure is high. But with intraocular melanoma, as I was saying, there's absolutely no way that it's a sun-related disease, because it has nothing to do, or the sun it's really not an area where the sun can access, right? And it's one of the, I think
I was referring to the fact that maybe the contact was blocking certain frequencies of light that
no, that's possible.
That eye needs,
Yeah, it's possible.
So, but yeah, all the chemical, is there chemicals in the solution that you clean your contacts with?
No, there's chemicals straight up in the contact lenses.
In the contact lenses themselves. Interesting.
Oh yeah.
Very interesting.
So where is it? Where is it in this article? Again, go support Jen so that she can continue to do this kind of interesting work. Yeah, I mean, there's fluorine and perfluorinated, I can't remember the acronym, PFAS. PFAS are bad.
I'm sure putting
fluoroalkyl substances. There's some of the forever chemicals that never break down, or rarely break down in history or in the body and in nature. So anyway, yeah.
There's an interesting term that popped into my head, just generally, that you got to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a line
Absolutely, yeah.
out of a song. I think it's out of a song. I can't remember the tune of it, but a lot of people aren't willing to check themselves before they wreck themselves. You know,
Oh,
people will be looking for all the magic things, and usually the answer to their solutions is within themselves, right?
yeah.
And if you don't have a good, if you're not good, you have good emotional health, good spiritual health, have a good relationship with yourself, you're going to do a lot of things that are going to wreck you, essentially.
Right. Right.
And that's why, well, it's just like in strength and conditioning. When someone has an elbow issue, I don't look at the elbow, I look at the whole body, right? Because the body works together as a unit, right? It's the same thing with health, right? You know, if you got a liver problem, you look at the whole system. You don't just look at the liver, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hmm.
You're going to be on with Allison Morrow next Thursday, which is going to be really fun.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, we're going to have that link we'll be able to share. So we're actually going to replace our Monday morning live on Thursday of next week with he's going to be on with Allison Morrow, who used to be a CNN anchor, I believe. She was a big time media person and then kind of got frustrated with the system and bailed and did her own thing.
Yeah, imagine that.
Great lady. Dr. Stillman was on her show already. You can search that in the search, and I think it's on his channel. It's on his lives if you want to go watch it on there. But it's a great interview. It's a great discussion if you want to watch that. But that's going to be fun.
Yeah, we'll have a good time. We had a great conversation last time.
Yeah, she's a neat lady.
Yeah, absolutely. So to take it back to heavy metals, I think I hope we've gone all over the place here, but that's because we don't just.
I think it's been fun. I've actually quite enjoyed it.
We hope you're having a good time. If you like the fact that Jim and I have, ADHD on these, just let us know in the comments. Otherwise, we'll try and keep it tighter.
Well, I have a weird combination of ADHD and obsessive-compulsive disorder. It's like I'm kind of scattered, but then on certain things, I'm like a pit bull. Once I grab it, and,
but we see that in all of our hyper successful people. You know what I mean? And so, like as a strength and conditioning coach, I think it's fair to say that you're hyper successful. You have people calling you who.
There's certain things that I just will not allow slide. There's some things like when I train somebody, I'll be like, good enough for now. But there's certain things as far as lifestyle and things like that. I'm like, if you don't get this in order, like you're not going to get better. And I just hit it with a hammer over and over and over again.
But I think, like I was saying, all of our extremely successful people, if you ask them if they have something that they just can't let go of, there's an absolutely yes for all of them. And it's part of their success,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the things that make you successful are usually the things that kill you.
In many respects, yes. So we actually have to really work with people to help them figure out if they're spending their time, their energy, their resources in an appropriate way, because they're also the things that will distract you from the things that will really make you miserable.
Well, it's just being able to hyper focus and then being able to hyper relax. Most people get stuck.
But not only that, we'll see people who they're doing everything right, they're doing all the things, they eat healthy, they only eat organic, and then
that creates stress.
No, that's not where I was going. Actually, it's where, like, for example, out of the blue, their marriage will fall apart because they are hyper focused on their business and they're not making enough time for their wife.
Right.
Or little Billy ends up in rehab. Oh, we had no idea.
Right.
Oh, we didn't know. I can't believe he didn't tell me. And that's one of the reasons why we talk about feelings with patients, because one of the, big red flags for me when someone's not getting the results they want is, how do you feel about this? What are your feelings? What's going on with your emotional state? People who can't, it's called alexithymia. Alexithymia is where you can't articulate your emotions. A lot of people wind up with serious psychological and physical problems because they do not manage their emotions well. And it's not so much about managing the emotions as it is about feeling them and dealing with them in an appropriate way. And feeling them is the first step in order to figuring out what to do about them.
Yeah,
But
and in
people
order to
don't
get
know.
rid of them, you have to feel them and not push them
Right.
down. You get it out like a kid that cries. It gets upset, it
Mhm.
cries, and then 5 minutes later it's happy. And
Right.
a lot of times as adults we don't do that.
Right. And a lot of that is about adaptation, right? If you, for example, if most healthcare workers, I think they suppress their emotions in order to be able to continue to do their job. Because when you talk to them about how they really feel about the way the system treats them and their patients, it bothers them deeply. This is part of why patients see so much pathological behavior in their providers. They'll say things like, they never listen to me, they don't care. So I will hear stories of doctors trying to drug patients with things that the patients don't really want. These are very toxic behaviors, very toxic attitudes. They're being inculcated in the doctors and nurses by a toxic system that's being it's rotting from the head. The administrators, the hospital administrators, the hospital higher ups, the the government bureaucrats, dictocrats, regulatory agencies. I mean, these are the scum of the earth. They're the most evil people on the planet. They're turning a healthcare system into a disease management and perpetuation system. That's really what the American medical system is. But anyway, Amy asks, do the forever chemicals displace minerals? That's a great question. So I don't know if I can really say definitively yes, but because the forever chemicals in general destroy life, they're going to displace or create an increased demand for minerals. And again, it's very hard. It's very hard to know. And one of the reasons why it's hard to know is that you have small concentrations of these things with very significant effects. That was one of the first books I ever read on the effects of toxic chemicals on life. It's called Low Levels, High Stakes by a woman named Claudia something. It was about multiple chemical sensitivity. And they point out that it takes very small quantities of these chemicals in order to really, really disrupt biology in a significant way. You're hearing more and more about this in the mainstream literature with endocrine disrupting compounds and things like that. People are waking up to this. So, yeah, Quantum Biology Collective says, I think we all have ADHD brains. I think that's absolutely true.
That's our good friend Meredith. If you haven't checked out the Quantum Biology Collective, go do
Please
that.
go check them out.
We contribute a lot to their content and courses.
Yeah.
I definitely think our modern lifestyle has poured gasoline on the ADHD brain, no doubt.
Yeah.
So we covered a lot of topics today. It was a lot.
We did.
But I think to sum it up, in general, focusing on the health of overall organism is the most important thing, whether you're dealing with blood pressure or pain or a wasp landing on your camera.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are essential for
Mm-hmm.
for no matter what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Right. I agree. And on that note, I think should we sign off, Jim?
Yeah, all the links where you can find us are below.
Yeah.
And can you add a book club?
That's a great question. So Amy asks,
Oops, I'm sorry.
can you add a book club podcast each week to talk a bit about your favorite books? I enjoy the recommendations. Maybe we should do that.
That's a good idea.
Oh boy. Yeah. Why don't we make that a book club? We'll figure it out, Jim.
We can have one episode a week that's a book club.
Yeah, we'll do that. Specific tests that can detect PFAS in the body is what Michelle asks. The answer is not really no. I know somebody who's told me about somebody who's got this test, and I don't know where you can get it. He was talking about mainstreaming it and marketing it and all that stuff. It'd be wildly popular, but I think the key with toxins to understand is that you're actually better off, I would say, treating your body like it's got them and you need to get rid of them than wondering about what your absolute level is. So, yeah.
I think people forget just how incredibly good the body is detoxifying itself.
Sure.
I mean, we're doing it 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The healthier you are, the better you're going to be at detoxing, right?
But I also think that they don't understand how good the body is at hiding things.
Well, yeah.
So you'll see these patterns in people's, and this is part of what totally fools most clinicians about toxin levels. They say, "Oh, well, your blood level is normal. Therefore, you don't have any of these toxins in your system. That's not
in
true.
your fat.
Yeah, it's in your fat or it's in your bones. It's somewhere. And that's part of why we do longer term toxin monitoring, like hair tissue mineral analyses tests, or 24-hour urinary toxin level testing. I don't really do that much because it's not convenient. But anyway, that's enough for today. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Don't forget to get outside.
Have a wonderful weekend. Spend some
Have a
time
wonderful
outside.
weekend.